Hello and welcome to The Mint. I'm Andy Hodges and this is TM Prime, broadcasting to you from our studios right here in Harare, Zimbabwe. What can we expect from Zimbabwe's 2024 national budget? Will Zimbabwe's Minister of Finance make policy moves that guarantee economic stability and growth, as well as ensure the economic fortunes of Zimbabweans? Simply put, will the minister put more money in your pocket or put more holes in it? Well, who better to answer these questions than Zimbabwe's Minister of Finance, Prof Mthuli Ncube? I sat down with the minister in an exclusive interview. Don't go away, The Mint. We'll be right back. Some may say that a budget is sort of a huge portion of a minister's job and finance minister's job. You know, it's like if I had to look in your office, I'll say one of the major things is the budget. And of course, 2024 budget is coming up. And I must say, I am looking forward to it. And I'm sure many are. Interesting times ahead. So let's talk about the key elements of formulating a national budget. How actually does it work in practice?
It's a process, Andy, in the sense that it starts with I would say the mid-term review of the previous budget. That's when it starts, because you get to see where things are headed regarding the previous budget. That's the time as well that we issue the budget strategy paper for the following year's budget, which is what this subject is about. So that gives, the mid-term review gives you some parameters, a base, and then you take it from there. So we produce the budget strategy paper, which has to go through cabinet, has to be approved by His Excellency the President, and has to be presented to Parliament. So parliamentarians then use it as a tool for consulting each other, consulting the public. We as government and Treasury in particular also use it for consulting the public. In there, we give the budget some theme, some area, some focus area. For instance, for 2024, our focus is on consolidating economic transformation. The transformation that has taken place since 2018. We believe that this budget really should consolidate that. You know, I can go into detail about that. So that's the theme. And then in there, then we define the budget priorities, such as, you know, maintaining macroeconomic stability, supporting infrastructure development, supporting the poor and the vulnerable, making sure the budget is pro-poor, but you have to finance that through investment in some other aspects of the economy to finance that support for the poor.
So these are issues I'm going to get into those areas in more detail, sir. But let's talk about each individual ministry. Like when you talk about the formulation of that budget, I mean, is it about your ministry talking to various ministries and sort of maybe walking the talk with them? How does it work?
So once you've started engaging on the priority areas through the budget strategy paper, then you get into the budget allocations. We have a call circular that we send around the ministry to say, you know what, please start bidding for your budgets for 2024, for next year. This is the ceiling we are giving you, because again, we have to come up with a budget framework. We know that for Zimbabwe, we can only raise about 18% of GDP in revenue. We rarely go above that given our capacity. So 18% of GDP is what it is. That's the overall envelope. Ministries have to try to fit in within that. So we use the previous year's trends in terms of budget utilization for each ministry to set a ceiling within that envelope. And then we haggle back and forth and argue and so forth.
But you also scrutinize, obviously. I mean,
we scrutinize.
Because people can't just give you a budget and say, well, we want to buy a new car or something like that.
Absolutely, because we have program-based budgeting, Andy. So the items in each budget for each ministry should be clear. What is it, and so forth and so forth. Of course, the issue about salaries is separate. Is separate. But it's about the programs that each ministry is requesting. So that process. Then we argue about it. Then eventually we come to the parliamentary retreat, usually a whole day retreat where the various budget committees. Remember, there's a committee that covers every ministry on the parliamentary side. So, for instance, for finance, Minister of Finance is the Budget and Finance Committee, as an example. So those committees also do their work, they consult the public and so forth. And so when we retreat to the parliament, they give their recommendations, their observations, then we have to listen and take that into account. And I must say that, in my view, this year's parliamentary retreat was the best that we've ever had since 2018. That's how I walked away feeling.
Well, because one of the questions...
I said, wow, we learned so much, and there were really good ideas. The atmosphere was excellent, very constructive. Because so this is part of the process.
Because one issue is obviously with a whole bunch of new members of parliament, maybe for the first time, because of course we had our August harmonized elections.
Yes.
That understanding of the budget, so that when they do have a vote on it, they really understand it properly. I mean, obviously you as a ministry and government are training MPs in terms of financial literacy, understanding what's going in the budget, so that they can make informed decisions. Is that how it works?
That's how it works. But basically, it's about them appreciating the size of the envelope available, and that they cannot get everything that they want. But it's about the ideas that they give us. For example, someone said, for the disabled, for example, yes, we're very pleased that His Excellency has appointed an advisor in his office for those who support those with disability. Why not elevate to a full commission? Someone said, why not a whole ministry for the disabled? I don't know about ministry, that's the prerogative of the head of state. But a commission, maybe, we can work with that. Then someone said, you know what? We have been not doing so well in capacitating Women's Bank to finance women entrepreneurs. Why not give it a prescribed asset status? It's within your realm, Minister of Finance. You can do that. Why don't you just do that? Then we can approach pension funds to then give additional capital to these institutions so they can lend more to
rather than getting the money out of the fiscus.
Rather than money from the fiscus. So these are ideas coming from both new and all members of parliament. It was remarkable. So that's part of the budget preparation.
Now, before I get into specifics, let's talk about this the theme: consolidating economic transformation. Speak a little bit on that.
The economy has undergone, I would say, tremendous economic transformation. For us to have come out of COVID the way we did in 2021 with a growth rate of 8.5%, in 2021, 2022 is 6.5%. This year, 2023, we expect a growth rate of 5.5%. We've actually upgraded it up from 5.3. Next year, even at 3.5%. So you look at Zimbabwe's average growth rate, is way above the regional average, SADC average. And all this is due to transformation. Let's look at infrastructure, road construction, the Beitbridge Harare Road, for example. The transformation that we are seeing in the mining sector, the whole lithium subsector is remarkable. We have the largest deposit of lithium on the African continent. You look at the Manise steel project, an amazing. In fact, my treasury team went to see Manise yesterday. They had never been there. I've been there twice. They were blown away.
I bet.
One of my senior directors says, Minister, I'm just going to live at Manise and watch the construction every day. Just the speed, the scale, the vision, the energy around it. It's just amazing.
And the economic impact that's going to have, not just on our industry, and be able to not import steel. I mean, it's incredible.
Absolutely. We stopped importing steel. We started exporting steel. We have other countries, buying steel from us. And I'm just mentioning one project. Of course, I must be clear. The Manise project is no longer a mining project. It's actually a manufacturing project, because steel is a final product of beneficiation. What's happening in the coal sector, even the energy space, 1K7 and 8. Of course, we still need to do more in the power front, but that's a real transformation. Look at the transformation in agriculture. We're wheat self-sufficient. We're food self-sufficient. We're not saying that every household has enough is food on their table, but there's food elsewhere that they could access, either through government structures or through their own capacity to purchase that food. So we're self-sufficient. Tourism is completely recovered, in my view. I could go on and on and on. There's complete transformation of the economy everywhere, and we want to consolidate that transformation by making sure that we add where we need to add, we fine-tune where we need to fine-tune, crowding the private sector where it's needed. We fine-tune our social protection programs. We want to consolidate this transformation so that it takes us to the next level as we move towards Vision 2030. I
suppose, simply put, it's like a car when it's getting down to empty. You want to put a bit more gas to make sure it keeps going. So you're consolidating its movement. If I can put it into a simple thing for our viewers. Thank you. Now, So that's government now. It's individual ministries, individual entities within the government, because obviously it's a huge organization, if I can call government that. Consultation with the president, because I'm sure, of course, whatever we're doing economically in terms of our policies have to go with a vision. And the vision, of course, starts right at the top of His Excellency, Vision 2030, upper middle income economy, by 2030, upper middle income nation by then. Do you go and get his vision and understand what his thrust is? Because obviously he may say, you know, I'd like more in this, I'd like more in that. How does it work? Or do you advise afterwards?
No, for a start, I meet the president every week, not in cabinet. We meet because the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion reports directly to His Excellency. It's his ministry. Yeah. So we meet every week to discuss policy issues. That's the first order of business. Second, when it comes to the budget, again, I take him through our thinking in terms of next year's budget, how the economy is doing, and then also I take him through the revenue measures. And he always comes back, pushes back, gives us ideas. Have you thought about that? He always asks very good questions. Actually, you don't want to be questioned by him. Nah. Tough questions,
I know
very
he's called
clever,
me out
very incisive, I'm you have to be clear. Then I'm thinking, maybe I should do this differently. Maybe I should do that differently. So we have that interaction. He has a tremendous input into the budget. As I speak, he knows everything that I'll be presenting in terms of revenue measures, in terms of areas of relief, areas of additional revenue, and then areas of how to improve the tax administration. He's fully aware and has given his input, and he has input. It's, in a way, it's his budget.
Yeah, well, it's his budget. It's what will define, I suppose, his government's agenda going forward for the next 5 years or the next year. And it's through the budget, it's through the financial books. Don't go away, The Mint. We'll be right back. But you know, you mentioned something interesting, the taxes, because they always say death and taxes are the two things that will never go away.
Right.
And how do you determine taxes? Because obviously you don't want to overtax, you don't want to undertax, you want to tax the right people, the right time, you want to maybe put tax relief to others. How does that whole process work when it comes to taxes?
It starts with the macroeconomic framework model. So we talk about models. Economists love models. So for an economy for our size, we believe that a tax rate of, or rather tax revenue to GDP ratio of the order of 18 to 20% is okay. Of course, we want to get more revenue, but we start from there. Then we say that, okay, for us to achieve this revenue to GDP ratio from the current base, where else should we be improving tax collection? Where should we be giving relief? And we have to balance between giving relief in some areas and higher taxation in some areas. As I said, that we could be stimulating industry, for example, with one tax, and maybe protecting the vulnerable with another tax by giving them relief, such as, for instance, dealing with the income bands. Like, you can be sure that we're going to move the income bands. We have no choice. Because inflation has moved that. So we're going to lose revenue in Zimbabwe dollar terms. But then we have to make up elsewhere as well. So you do that fine-tuning, but there's some guiding macroeconomic parameter. Why? Because then it impacts overall growth of the economy and profile, macro profile of the economy. And also it impacts variables such as inflation. For instance, if the expenditure is too high relative to the revenue that you are going to raise, then you have to worry about, how am I going to finance the deficit?
You have to go borrow.
I have to borrow. It's inflationary. I have to monetize it. It gets money supply. Then the exchange rate is weak. So all that is coming from a macro model. That is your starting point. And then you fine tune various aspects of taxes. There are also tax incentives, by the way. Sometimes it's not just about taxation. Think about industry. When we give, for instance, VAT deferment for importation of equipment, deferment up to 90 days or whatever, 6 months maybe, 180 days, that's an incentive. Where when we say to those operating the tourism industry, you can bring in your trucks for ferrying tourists duty free, that is an incentive.
Even so some of it is Zupco buses.
Absolutely, Zupco buses, duty free. So all of that is incentives. And again, it stimulates the economy. So it grows the denominator again in your revenue, your GDP growth. So you actually end up even having more revenue in the future for more expenditure in areas of need.
Because I mean, the fact is this: government. I won't say you don't want to charge taxes, but actually, in a way, too high taxes can be economically disadvantageous.
No, it's true. It's true that when taxes are also too high, they can slow down economic growth. There are cases where actually cutting taxes right down can be stimulatory of GDP growth, and in fact you end up even collecting more in future. So you just try to have that balance. Taxes should be fair, they should be equitable. So there's a sense of fairness and equitable, feel about it.
So if I can be a little bit sneaky, you're basically saying that if you're an Zimbabwean citizen, possibly as one sector working for an employer, you can probably expect a little bit more in your pocket as the bands move. Can I say that?
So this is what will happen. Citizens should expect more Zimbabwe dollars in their pockets from this budget. Absolutely. Because so the bands will move and make sure that we give our citizens relief at that.
Okay, so at least you will be looking at taxes. And of course, you did mention something as well there, which is I've had complaints from industry about the complicatedness of the tax regime. I mean, I remember one business was saying they had to file 17 different tax heads to different ministries. And that also talks to your other investment promotion, ease of doing business, doesn't it? I mean, that cannot be ease of doing business.
I always listen carefully to criticism on the complexity of the tax system. And I accept it fully, that as long as industry is saying that, it means we have to keep improving. And that's a message I also want to give to Zimra, and Zimra should listen. If our tax system and the rules are complicated, let's simplify them, and we will keep working at it. I'm pleased that Zimra has launched the TAMS, the domestic tax revenue system called TAMS.
On the 1st of January.
It will also assist in simplification, in access. We're going more and more electronic, and Zimra will be able to link up with the banks and so forth, especially in terms of import duties and so forth.
You made a very good comment there, Minister, because I know the President is keen. In fact, he's insisting that government goes e-commerce, e-government. And I'm sure that somewhere in your budget there has to be something for that, because the more that you can get it online, you cut down corruption. You can analyze the revenue you're getting. You can analyze exactly what's happening in real time. Is that something as well that's on the back of your mind when you're looking at the budget?
Absolutely. Government is very strong on going e-commerce and e-government. So for example, we've introduced an electronic procurement system, which we're very proud of. It's been launched, was launched by His Excellency, and we're supporting that fully. And that will cut down on waste by government, cut down on corruption, cut down on overpricing. It will help us manage the things within the value for money principles. But e-commerce general right across the economy is a good thing. In terms of efficiency, it creates new opportunities. We can also tax better when everything is, we e-paid. It's easy for us to follow up. So e-commerce
so it works both ways, getting money or giving it.
Absolutely, it works both ways. So we should support it as government. We are supporting.
So and again, of course, it really boosts the fight against corruption. I know the President is in fact, it's one of the top priorities of his government.
Absolutely, the President is very tough on corruption. He supports ZAC, we all do, and other organs of the state that are supporting the law enforcement aspects when it comes to corruption. So anything we can do to make sure that we reduce corruption and reduce tax evasion, and the tax system can be used to fight corruption, because you can follow up on those who are doing illicit activities, you know, with under the cover of
in fact, tax evasion is something that we haven't really focused on, but it's happening. There's no doubt about it. It's happening. There's no doubt. Now, if you look at the 2023 budget as an example, we saw the major allocations going to what I may sum up as the usual suspects. Health, education in particular. I know that, of course, our army, our security services, of course, because of the manpower involved in that. And, of course, the big one, salaries and wages, which I have a feeling that 2023 you didn't do so well on, Minister. What do you say, 50% or just over 50% of your budget? But whoa, with the amount of inflation and exchange rate movements, you found it hard to keep to that number. So it's an interesting...
No, we kept up to that. We kept to that number because this is a magic number, 51%. Of total revenues and so forth. It's a magic number. We have to stick to that. Even when there is inflation and so forth, whatever budget we have, we stick to that. Okay. So when we negotiate even with the civil service and so forth, we watch that ratio. It's a very important ratio. Very important. The moment we breach that, it means that we no longer have money for goods and services.
You're taking things away from somewhere.
Exactly. Programs are being run down, shut down. We stop all the infrastructure investment because investing in infrastructure is actually, we're investing in growth. You actually kill growth if 99% of the salary is on wages. We used to be there, by the way, if you recall, way back in prior to 2018. We used to have, a high salary to revenue ratio. We can't sustain it.
Well, I mean, so that then the question then is I don't know if I can call it a tough job. Yes, I will call it a tough job because you have this finite pool of money. It's not infinite; it's finite. You know how much you're going to get, or you're anticipating to get. You also know that you have to look after various vulnerable people, persons with disabilities, etc. Maybe women, SMEs. Then you've also got to look at health. You've got to look at education. You've got to look at the cost of medicine and drugs. How do you come up with this balance to say we're going to put 5% of our budget there, 10% there, 15% there? I mean, apart from health, of course. I know for health is guaranteed by the 50% Abuja. But how do you do that? It must be very hard.
It's never easy. And ministers push, ministers fight for their budget, as they should. Yeah, they should. Even my ministry does the same thing with me, because we're also a ministry, Minister of Finance.
They want the money
from they want the money from me. Say, Minister, our budget is low. Why do you should have a bigger back pocket for us to make use of and so forth. So it's always a tough job balancing priorities. But it helps to have, as I say, a theme, as I said, consolidating economic transformation, already signaling a certain direction. So you then prioritize those sectors that will ensure the transformation is consolidated, the transformation continues. You have a finite envelope, but also you have a track record of how each ministry has done. We have a clear track record. We also make use of that track record. We can see which ministers overspend and why. Is it because we gave them less budget last year? Should we do better? Sometimes you've got special interest groups, women and youth. You know that you have to give them a healthy budget. You also have institutions of oversight. Parliament, you have the
those commissions, of course. Land Commission, the Audit, Human Rights Commission,
the Auditor General's Office, for example. That's an oversight institution. So again, they need a healthy budget. The security cluster, of course, you can only develop under conditions of peace. And peace is expensive, Well, if you think peace is expensive, try war. Right? It's even more expensive.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. Rather have peace than war. Yes,
exactly. So pay for peace at least. Yeah. So you've got all these. It's never easy. You balance. But you talked about the international standards and conventions for agriculture. For instance, we've got the Maputo Declaration, which says that the budget for agriculture should not be less than 10%. And then for health, should not be less than 12%. That's the Abuja budget, target. Then for education, you have got the Dakar targets, which are that for the whole sector, it shouldn't be less than 20% in terms of allocation.
So these numbers guide you?
So we follow, they guide us. Okay. These numbers, we follow these numbers because we're also judged out there. Everyone looks and says, how's Zimbabwe doing versus Ghana versus Namibia? We're compared to others. And when we go into the conferences around the world, well, we are judged, we are evaluated.
Well, that's it for today's episode of The Mint. Join us at 1400 hours Central African time every weekday for The Mint, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and of course Wednesdays for Beat the Market. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.